Case file number 3602, written by Blue G11. Residual steam pressure. This happened on my family's property, a huge plot of land that has been in the family for eons. My relatives are obsessive about this land. They have the whole property mapped out, literally down to every tree, bush, and rock. There are no secrets on this acreage, or so I thought. I was hiking deep into a section of the forest I don't usually visit when I stumbled onto something that shouldn't have been there. Let me reiterate, could not be there. It was an old, abandoned steam locomotive. Yes, basically a damn train. It was sitting inside a small, single locomotive wooden shed that looked like it was rotting into the earth. What made it so weird was that there was absolutely no record of tracks ever being built out there. I looked around. There was maybe 20 feet of rusted track coming out of the front of the shed. Other than that, just dirt and trees. No clearing, no grading, no trail of where a line would have come from or those rocks they use under them. I spent at least an hour exploring it, totally baffled. I was trying to find a serial number or a company name to figure out which railroad it had belonged to. The whole thing was dead quiet, deep, heavy silence in the woods. The locomotive was covered in rust, worn down by decades of weather. I walked up and touched the boiler. It was ice cold. Metal in the shade cold. Then out of nowhere, the whistle blew. It wasn't a little hiss either, it was a full, resonating blast that echoed through the trees and vibrated my heart. I've had people tell me since then that it could be residual steam pressure. But steam from where? The engine hadn't been fired up in probably 50 years at least, and like I said, the boiler was freezing to the touch. There was no heat, no fire, no reason for pressure at all to exist. After that, I noped out of there so fast you wouldn't believe it. I didn't sleep a wink that night, just kept hearing that whistle in my head, but I don't think it was blasting again in reality. The next morning, I grabbed my gear and went back to the exact same spot. Naturally, in this deeply unnatural way, it was gone. Not just the train, the entire wooden shed and those 20 feet of track were completely erased too. There was no flattened grass, no tire tracks from a heavy crane, no disturbed dirt. It was like they had never existed. The only thing left in the dirt were a few old, rusted railroad spikes. So there was something, I guess. I still have them today, hauled them back. They're the only physical proof I have that I didn't hallucinate the whole damn thing. A whole freaking train and a building just came and went without a trace. I think the best part of the story is the ending bit where you do have those pieces left over. The only physical proof indeed. But that means that this is more than multiverse sight. Otherwise I would just say, yeah, we just saw a different universe. One where indeed there is this abandoned train there. Although even in that sense, it's still a mystery because how did it get there? There were no tracks leading away. Unless they were just removed. But even the stones were removed and no, I don't know. The fact that it's still a mystery, even if it was multiverse sight, is pretty cool. But yeah, back to this universe, this one has me stumped. Again, there's no rational, mundane explanation that I can think of. It's the middle of a deep forest. You can't get a heavy machinery out there, not without cutting down trees and actually having a path of some sort. And you'd notice that. How does a train just appear and then disappear overnight? I got nothing. That's so weird. Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. Today I have 13 Glitch in the Matrix and Paranormal Stories. My favorite one, there's so many good ones today. There always are, but this especially, man. The first one you just listened to was really interesting, of course, and okay, I think it involves specks of light. Let's get to it. Case file number 3603, written by Mariska Noodles. The Rationalist One Unsolved Event. I have a close friend who is a strict rationalist. Like zero interest in ghosts, categorically does not believe in anything spooky, and thinks everything has a logical, scientific explanation, and will not entertain any foolishness otherwise. But there's this one story she swears happened to her, and it clearly bothers her because it's the one thing she can't solve, with her added asterisk of yet. A few years back, she was traveling through Europe with another friend. They were doing the tourist bit of following a guide through a massive historic estate. I can't remember exactly where, but one of those old storied houses. The two of them were deep in conversation, just chatting animatedly, and laughing as they followed the group into this small side room. The second they crossed the threshold, my friend became aware of a sound. It was a woman sobbing. Because she was so involved in their conversation, it took her a few seconds to really register it, but then she realized she had been hearing the sound from the exact moment she'd stepped into the room. It wasn't faint or distant, it was loud, and it was heartbreaking. She honestly thought they'd accidentally walked in on a staff member or another tourist having a private emotional breakdown. She actually started to turn around, mouth open, about to apologize for interrupting such a vulnerable and personal moment. But there was absolutely no one there, and as soon as she looked for the source, the sound just cut out, as if acknowledging its existence canceled it out. The weirdest part, her other friend, who was standing right next to her the whole time, heard nothing, just the tour guide's voice and the shuffle of feet. My friend doesn't tell this story often. When she does, we try to help her out with the rational stuff. We suggest weird echoes, noises from a pipe, or maybe someone crying outside the window. She always nods and says those are really good explanations, but you can tell she doesn't believe them deep down. She says none of those ring fully true because of the acoustics. She said it felt like it was inches from her face, multiple seconds of a woman literally sobbing her heart out. She describes it as a sound of pure, raw grief, like a mother who lost her husband or child kind of agony. It really bothers her that she can't explain it away. She doesn't like to discuss it, and she says it's barely a story anyway. But it clearly upsets her. I think it's because, for one tiny window of time, her logical world didn't make sense, and she's been stuck with that itching anomaly ever since. I think these stories are almost more chilling when it happens to someone who hates or discredits the paranormal. I absolutely agree that stories involving skeptics that at least admit it's so cool because this person, your friend, has a very powerful mind, I think. It's important to be skeptical and to question things. Now, you can be too guarded, I think, as well, too far in one direction. But if you have at least just a tiny opening, and this is what this story did for her, the crying and sobbing in pain of someone else who probably was real, probably from a different universe if I had to guess, I think that was a real event that happened somewhere else, and it's simply the information and the pain and the emotions bled through to this universe for a small amount of time. I don't know if acknowledging it really made it disappear, whatever, it probably was some permeable area that you were in of the multiverse membrane, whatever it may be, things that separate the universes. It was just thinner, and I mean, this is a repeating idea that is in many fictions too. And I think it carries over in reality where there's like the abyss or hell or a different dimension that is just very close to ours. And there's some thin membrane that can separate it, and some areas are weaker than others. I think that probably is true in a way we can't intuitively imagine. It's not exactly like a thin sheet or something, but it's something that could be approximated as that. But anyways, I agree that when a skeptic is challenged by something they can't explain, that's great. It doesn't mean you abandon the scientific method and science. I certainly don't. I try to explain things in ways that make sense and would be grounded in science, even if... And that's the only difference between magic and science. Magic is either things that have no rational, repeatable explanation. There's no logic to it. It's simply magic. If you can eventually explain it, even if the explanation is so far beyond us that we can't comprehend it, if there is an explanation, something that can say, okay, this can be repeated, this can be explained to some extent, then it's not magic. Although, then you have to get down to the fundamental of science as we understand it now. There are various forces in the universe, but we can't ask why to those. They're just fundamental forces like electromagnetism and gravity. We can try to explain them, how they work, and predict them, but we can't explain why they are that way. They just are. So I guess at the fundamental layer, everything is kind of magic, which is pretty cool. That's kind of poetic. Case file number 3604, written by Acceptable Bell 142. A prophet, but only once. Back in early 2003, quite a while ago, so I've had this story banked, I had this incredibly vivid, terrifying dream. In the dream, I was just looking up at the sky, and I saw these streaks of light. Specks are more accurate, but they weren't stars or meteors. They started breaking apart, and I watched these glowing pieces of something just falling through the atmosphere, scattering everywhere. I didn't know why in the dream, but it felt incredibly heavy emotionally. When I woke up, I didn't immediately think, oh, a prophecy of some kind. I just thought it was weird. I got out of bed and started going about my normal Saturday morning routine, but I couldn't shake this absolutely sickening sense of anxiety. It was a heavy dark cloud sitting on my shoulders. I felt physically ill with dread, but I had no logical reason to feel that way. A few hours later, I turned on the TV. I remember just freezing in front of the screen. The news was everywhere. The space shuttle Columbia had broken up during re-entry. They were showing footage of the debris streaks across the sky over Texas, and it was identical to what I had seen in my head while I was asleep. All 7 crew members were gone in a flash, in specks of light in the sky. The pit in my stomach just bottomed out. I had seen the lights. I had seen the pieces falling in my dreams before it happened, and then I woke up to the world actually losing them. I still get chills thinking about that gap of time between the dream and the news report. It was a sickening feeling. That was my brain knowing of a great tragedy before even the universe itself did. How the hell is that possible? I'm not a damn prophet. I can't read your palm, and I've never had premonitions before or since. Okay, and this is my favorite story in this batch, just because it's so heavy. And I was thinking too, if I recall, for the Columbia disaster, it happened early in the morning, and obviously you're sleeping at night, and you wake up during the day, at least by what I can ascertain in this, you're not a night owl or anything. So maybe this wasn't a prophetic dream, but it was, you were dreaming of the event as they were unfolding, because it's Saturday, so you probably slept in. I think it happened at 9 a.m. or around that time. And so maybe you were dreaming as it was happening, and then you woke up. The tragedy that was unfolding, somehow that connected directly to your subconscious mind. I don't know how that would happen, and that's as extraordinary to me as a premonition. Either way, wow. The fact that it never happened again, though, is the mysterious part. Is it that people are just randomly impacted or afflicted by these kind of weighty events that unfold? If it's a prophetic vision or a dream of something happening right now, but that you can't have knowledge of through ordinary means, why does it affect some people? And why only once in this case? That doesn't make any sense. Is it not your innate ability? It's just random? It's like the lottery or the anti-lottery, I guess, if it's going to be emotionally impactful for you in a devastating way. And I mean, how could it not be? I don't know why. But that is the biggest question, isn't it? Why does it happen to some people and not others? Case file number 3605, written by Lana Morrigan. It hit the wall. She hit denial. This is one of those things that happened years ago and still makes my skin crawl when I think about it. I was in a phase where I was basically talking to a ghost in our house. I know how that sounds, but it felt real at the time. I was using a MacGyvered Ouija board made from cardboard and markers. One day, I just straight up asked it if it wanted anything. The answer came back. It wanted a pencil. I didn't really think it through. I just grabbed a standard yellow pencil and held it flat out across my open palms. I wasn't gripping it or anything, just offering it up like a tray. For a second, nothing happened. Then the pencil started to vibrate. I could feel this weird high-frequency hum buzzing against the skin of my palms. Suddenly, the thing just shot across the room. It launched with enough force to ricochet off the wall, like it had been thrown by a pro baseball player. It hit the wall with a loud thwack and bounced away. My sister was standing right there. She saw the vibration, she saw the launch, and she saw it hit the wall. She was just as terrified as I was in that moment. We both knew what we'd seen. She didn't see me talking with the ghost, but everything else, yes. A few years later, she got religion. Now she's super devout and claims the whole thing never happened. She looks me right in the eye and tells me I'm making it up or that my memory is playing tricks on me. It's the ultimate betrayal in the form of gaslighting. I know what I felt on my hands, and I know what she saw, but because it doesn't fit her new worldview, she pretends it didn't happen. It's baffling to me how someone can witness something that defies physics and then just decide it didn't happen because they changed their mind about how the world works. Case file number 3606, written by UN Station 54. Annoying children do have powers. I was turning 8, I think. We had 6 kids over for a sleepover. We were all being tough and tried to sleep in tents in the backyard, but we ended up getting spooked by every little noise and hauled everything back into the house within a couple hours, tops. We dragged those egg crate foam mattress covers into the living room, laid them all out on the floor, and basically made one giant bed fort for everyone. By the middle of the night, everyone pretty much crashed out, but I was in that overtired and annoyed mode. I started making up this random stupid as hell song about sailing on a red jelly bean boat. I was singing it over and over, just being a total brat, and everyone else was getting so pissed off and telling me to shut up so they could sleep. The weird part is, I didn't even like jelly beans back then. We didn't have any at the party, no candy bowls, no snacks like that, nothing. My parents were sticklers, what everyone now calls an ingredients household. I have no idea why my brain picked red jelly bean boat to sing about. It was just pure silliness. Anyway, fast forward to the next morning. We're all waking up and helping my parents clean up the living room. We're tossing blankets aside and lifting up the foam mattress pads. Right under the foam, exactly where I'd been laying while I was singing my heart out, was a single, perfect red jelly bean. The frick? I have no idea where it came from to this day. There wasn't a bag of them anywhere in the house and had never been. I hadn't been eating them, and yet there it was, right where I'd been manifesting it with that annoying song for an hour straight. Maybe it was just a crazy coincidence, but it still weirds me out. Well, this is a funny story, and just because I never sang when I was annoying as a kid, but I think I was just hyper. I would always be bouncing around, and I hated sleeping. I still I don't hate sleep now, but I don't want to sleep, because just living and being conscious is more fun. But anyways, the jelly bean, maybe what actually happened here, and this is a possible explanation, is just your parents have an ingredients-only household, which, okay, that's a good thing, but it's also kind of boring, right? Maybe they weren't perfect themselves. Maybe they had some jelly beans hidden away somewhere, and they never told the kids, because, yeah, that would be a wise move. If you're a parent, you're kind of a hypocrite then, but hey, I mean, yeah, I get it. So maybe they were snacking on jelly beans sometimes when you guys were asleep. Yeah, maybe one fell, and maybe your subconscious picked it up when you were moving the mattresses into the area, and you didn't realize it consciously, but that's why you started singing about it. So that could be an explanation. Still, I think the fact that jelly bean was there is less of the mystery and more how you just suddenly started to sing about it. Even if you subconsciously saw it, why would you do that? It's kind of weird. So, I mean, kind of a possible explanation, but yeah, jelly bean mystery. Case file number 3607, written by Zug the Megasaurus. A eulogy for my right shoe. I have this pair of old, beat-up shoes that are basically my dog-walking uniform. We live in an apartment, so I'm sliding these things on at least 4 times a day to take the dogs out. Because of that, I keep them right by my desk so I can just grab and go. They are never more than a few feet away from me. About a month ago, the right shoe just ceased to exist. I remember the exact moment it happened too. I was sitting at my desk, kicked the shoes off, and watched the right one drop and roll under my chair. Saw it happen. I saw it hit the floor and disappear into the shadows beneath the seat. I was in a massive hurry to get something else done, so I didn't reach down for it right then, thinking, whatever, I'll grab it the next time I have to take the dogs out. Later comes and gone. Since then, I have looked everywhere. And when I say everywhere, I mean I've gone full homes on this apartment. I've cleaned every single square inch. I've gone through every box, every bin, and every container in the place. I even got so desperate and pissed off that I flipped the damn couch over to see if it somehow defied physics and slipped behind a cushion or into the lining. Nothing. Not a trace. The shoe is just not here. I'm certain of it now. It's a small apartment. There aren't that many places for a physical object to hide, especially something I was looking at 2 seconds before it vanished. It's completely baffling how it clipped out of reality. Case file number 3608, written by Leah Nicole 2662, High Def Sobbing. I have tried to debunk it 1,000 times. I never could. I was home alone with my daughter, who was 5 months old at the time. It was early evening, so it was already pitch black outside. Since she was napping on my lap and I didn't want to wake her, I had all the lights in the house turned off. The only thing illuminating the room was a bluish glow from the TV. I was watching the first Harry Potter, a comfort movie I've seen so many times I basically know it by heart. At one point, I hit pause. I don't even remember why, maybe to just check my phone or enjoy the rare quiet. So, the house is completely, 100% silent. I could hear my heart beating quiet. Then out of nowhere, I heard the sound of a woman sobbing. It wasn't faint, and it wasn't down the hall or outside the window. It was so crystal clear and loud, it felt like someone was standing right over my shoulder, holding a recording or a speaker directly against my ear. It lasted for about 5 seconds, ravaged sobbing. My brain immediately started scanning for a logical source. The TV? Paused. Plus I know that specific scene. It's where Harry and Ron are playing, that's totally barbaric, wizard's chess. Nobody is crying in that scene, besides maybe the pieces. My phone was sitting right there, no apps open, no videos playing. And I even checked the Bluetooth. There were no random devices in the house that were on, which could have accidentally picked up a neighbor's signal or a stray phone call. I was sitting in a dark house, in a dark room, with a sleeping baby, and a woman was crying right in my ear. It was just so bizarre because it wasn't ghostly or muffled, it was a high-definition sound. After 5 seconds, it just cut off, and the silence came back. I didn't move for like 20 minutes. I've lived here for a while, and never had anything paranormal happen, but I cannot for the life of me figure out an explanation for this. Case file number 3609, written by Gravity Checked, The Tantrum That Saved My Life. This happened when I was about 3 years old. Families walk their dogs at dusk and nobody even thinks twice about safety. Even the cliche of leaving our doors unlocked. Man, good times those were. Anyways, one evening, my family decided to head out for their usual nightly walk. Now, normally, I was a pretty chill kid, barely cried at all, but as soon as they mentioned going for a walk, I flipped. I went into total unhinged hysterics. My parents described it as this level of screaming and crying that they had never seen from me before. I was terrified and they were too as a result. I kept sobbing that I didn't want to go. It got so bad that my mom finally just sighed and said, "Fine, I'll stay home with the toddler." My dad took my 2 sisters and our dog and headed out without us. The second, and I mean the second, the door closed and I realized I was staying inside, I stopped crying. Completely. I just went back to whatever I was doing like nothing happened. Full, inexplicable reset. About 20 minutes later, it happened. A drunk driver came screaming through our quiet neighborhood, way over the speed limit, and lost control. He hit my dad, my sisters, and the dog head on. It was a miracle they all survived. There were broken bones across the board, and my dad ended up needing some minor surgery to fix the damage, but they all made it through. Even the dog quite literally walked away from the impact. But my parents always get real quiet when they reach the end of the story, because back then I was so tiny, if I had been out there in a stroller or walking next to them, there is no way I would have survived those kinds of forces. I would have been killed, or at the very least, permanently messed up in ways that I'd probably wish I'd been killed. I have no memory of why I was so scared, but I knew something was coming for us that night. It really makes you wonder if kids are just more tuned in to things we can't see. Case file number 3610, written by Cilantro4909. A basic white ceiling jump scare. I was laying in bed, just hanging out and resting. I wasn't even tired at all. I wasn't drifting off or in a half-sleep state where you hallucinate. I was just relaxing with my eyes closed for a few minutes, completely awake and conscious of everything around me. The subtle touch of the air on my skin, my PC fan softly whirring away. At some point, I just decided to open my eyes. I looked straight up at the ceiling, and my heart nearly exploded. Flat against the ceiling, right above me, was me. It was a 100% perfect, complete reflection of myself, like the ceiling had suddenly turned into a massive mirror. But it wasn't a mirror. I could see every detail. It was me in the exact same position I was laying in, wearing the exact same clothes I have on right now. I was staring up at myself, staring back down at me. It was like two identical bookends pinned to the room. I didn't feel like I was leaving my body or anything like those astral projection stories you hear about. I was firmly in my bed, feeling the mattress under my back. But there I was also, defying gravity on the drywall as a perfectly mirrored duplicate. I blinked, moved my arm, which it did too. Then I blinked again and it was gone. Freaking hell, man. Back to the normal, regular, white basic bitch ceiling. I know what I saw. Case file number 3611, written by Lacey Laplante. His remote, my TV, no notes. This happened a while back when I was in a long-distance relationship. Being 1,000 kilometers apart sucks, so we had this little ritual to feel like we're actually hanging out. We'd get on the phone, crack open a few beers, and binge The Simpsons on Disney+. Since we couldn't actually sit on the same couch, we'd do the classic, okay, 1, 2, 3, go, and we both hit play at the same time. Usually we'd mess it up because, alcohol. We'd be a few seconds off, laugh about it, and have to count down again to get it perfectly synced. But this one time, things got genuinely freaky. We were settling in for an episode when my TV screen suddenly just restarted. It went back to the beginning of the show, but I hadn't even touched the remote. I was literally just sitting there holding my phone to my ear. I was confused, so I told him, "Wait, mine just reset for some reason. Press yours again so we can sync it up." I kid you not, as soon as he pressed the button on his remote in his own house, 1,000 kilometers away, my TV responded. I watched it happen in real time. He'd click, and my TV would react. It was like his remote was paired directly to my living room. Now, look, I have absolutely no knowledge of how remotes, TVs, or phones actually work. I'm not a tech person at all. But I'm pretty sure a signal from a plastic remote isn't supposed to travel through a phone line across half the continent and pop out of my phone to tell my TV what to do. It makes zero sense. I wasn't expecting it, I can't explain it, and even years later, it still weirds me out. Case file number 3612, written by Lock-in Capitan 866. My bike died, so I didn't have to. I was 12. I was in a bad place and had decided to run away from home, sort of. I was on my bike, just pedaling away into the dark, wearing nothing but jeans and a heavy coat. No helmet, no lights, nothing protective. I didn't even see the car coming. It was moving fast. Later I figured out it had to be going at least 55 to 60 miles per hour. The impact was so violent that my body was floating in the air for what felt like forever. Then everything went black, and I was knocked out cold. When I finally came to, I was lying on the grass on the complete opposite side of the road from where I had been riding. I have no idea how long I was out or how I even got there. My bike was a few feet away, but it wasn't even a bike anymore. It was just a mangled, twisted heap of messed up scrap metal. It was completely destroyed. I braced myself for the pain, thinking my legs would be snapped or my head would be split open, but then I just got up. Huh? I checked myself over. My jeans were torn and I had some nasty road rash on my knees, but that was it. The only other injury I had was a massive Charlie horse in my right calf muscle. I was walking with a limp because of a muscle cramp after being hit by 2 tons of steel at highway speeds. The darkest part of the whole thing? The person who hit me never stopped. They didn't call for help. They didn't check to see if the kid they just launched into the air was still breathing. They just drove off and left me in the dark. I spent years wondering how I survived that without a single broken bone or a brain injury. By all accounts, I should have been dead on the scene probably before even hitting the ground from whiplash, but especially without a helmet. Instead, I just had some scraped up knees and a sore leg. Case file number 3613, written by Smart Drawing 5107. 1 brain cell, if that, and luck. I'll be the first to admit, I was an idiot. Prime grade A moron. I put myself in bad spots on my bike more than once, but this specific night was the peak of my truly supreme stupidity. Alright, I was riding down this 4-lane road, 2 lanes in each direction, and for some reason I decided to just ride the center of the double yellow lines. It was pitch black out, and I was in this dead zone where streetlights didn't overlap, so I was basically invisible. To make matters worse, I had 0 lights on my bike, none. I'm bombing downhill, and looking at the straightaway, at the bottom, I see 2 cars coming up the hill toward me, side by side. At that point, I wasn't panicked. I figured I had plenty of time to just veer over into the opposing lanes before they reached me. The problem? Just as those 2 cars got about 5 seconds away from me, doing at least 35 or 40 miles per hour, 2 other cars suddenly whipped around the curve at the top of the hill behind me. They were also side by side, also doing about 40. In an instant, the calculations turned deadly. I was pinned. All 4 cars were converging on my exact position at the same time. There was nowhere to go. I was stuck in that double yellow line with a wall of headlights in front of me and a wall of headlights behind me. I just steered the bike as straight as I could in the dead center of the street and closed my eyes. I literally braced for impact, expecting the end. I 100% expected to be crushed or at the very least get clipped by side mirrors and sent flying. I thought, this is it, I'm done. Then nothing. All of a sudden, the roar of the engines faded and the cars were just past me. I opened my eyes and I was still upright, still rolling. No horns honked, nobody slammed on their brakes, there was no sudden swerving. It was like I wasn't even there. It honestly felt like I became intangible for a split second, or the cars just phased through me. To this day, I have no idea how I survived that. There is no way 4 cars and a bike fit into that small space at the same time without a scratch. I'm just lucky to be here and considered it a pivotal life lesson, one that I will never ever forget. Case file number 3614, written by Steak and Iron. I have the impossible receipts. This occurred back in late March of 2018. At the time, I was living in Alameda and basically living out of my car for work. I had to commute down to Southern California every week. The routine was soul-crushing. Drive down Monday morning, grind all week, and then blast back home on Friday. Paso Robles. It's about 200 miles south of Alameda, and it was always my sweet spot for a break. It's got decent food, plenty of gas stations, and it's just a nice place to stretch your legs before the final jaunt of the trip. The Friday in question. I pulled into Paso right as the sun was starting to dip. I gassed up the car, a 2017 Ford Edge. Decent ride, but definitely not a member of the Fast and Furious crew. Grabbed a quick bite and hopped back behind the wheel. Before I pulled out of the parking lot, I sent a text to my wife. I remember looking at the clock, 7:30 p.m. I literally have the text to confirm it. I still have it. That didn't change. I told her, just leaving Paso Robles. See you in a few hours. The drive itself was unremarkable in terms of what I directly felt or saw. I was completely zoned out, listening to podcasts with cruise control on, in a state of highway hypnosis where you kind of wake up and realize you've passed 3 exits and wonder how you're still alive and didn't crash. It was like that, but for the whole trip. I pulled into my driveway in Alameda, grabbed my bag, and walked through the front door. I figured I'd be sneaking in while my wife was asleep, but she was standing right there in the kitchen. She looked at me like she'd seen a ghost. "What are you doing here?" I looked at the microwave clock, 9:30 p.m. I did the math in my head. Left Paso Robles at 7:30 p.m. I got home at 9:30 p.m. That's roughly 200 miles in exactly 2 hours. To maintain that average, I would have had to be doing well over 100 miles per hour the entire time, including the part where the 101 slows down through towns, the transition to the 880, and the traffic lights in Alameda, in a Ford Edge, without getting pulled over by a single CHP officer? It's physically impossible. I've heard plenty of stories about lost time, where people end up somewhere later than they should be, but this was the opposite. I somehow gained an hour of travel. I still have no idea how I got home that fast. Looking at that 7:30 p.m. timestamp on my phone gives me the chills. Okay, so another space-time portal intersecting on a road, a highway, it's so freaking common. But I just love that there's so many points of evidence in this one that there is no possible mundane explanation. You have a pretty normal car, a Ford Edge. You can't be fast and furious in your way to your home. And even if you tried to, there would be cops, there would be obstacles. You couldn't go that fast in the town itself, like you say, with the stoplights and everything and stop signs. So there's no physical way, even if you're Vin Diesel, to get there in time. So there you go, space-time portal. What else could it be? It's just cool. You have the receipts. Now time for the jokes of the day. Walking home last night, I passed a slice of apple pie, an ice cream sundae, and a lemon cheesecake. I said to myself, the streets seem strangely deserted tonight? They sure do. My son was just born, and another dad at the nursery congratulated me and said his daughter was born yesterday. Said maybe they'll marry each other. Sure, like my son's gonna marry someone twice his age. I hurt my back walking like an Egyptian. Now I have to see a chiropractor. I just discovered that Albert Einstein was a real person. My whole life I thought he was a theoretical physicist. A hungry traveler stopped at a monastery and was taken to the kitchens where a brother is frying chips. "Are you the friar?" he asked. The brother replied, "No, I'm the chip monk." Video up here. YouTube thinks you'll like it. Check it out. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. See you next time.